Moving, loading, packing, driving, delivering, and doing it all again. This is Jason Hannigan's life, running his own delivery business. But despite his long hours, he's stuck in a financial nightmare.
It's been a very hard slog. Very hard. I have good and bad days. Some days I just want to destroy everyone. And other days I just deal with it.
His troubles began back in 2012 when the Hannigans took out a $600,000 loan from a lender called Pepper Money. He estimates their monthly income was about $9,500. Their mortgage broker recorded their expenses at just $1,300 a month.
That's for 5 people. It's an imaginary figure. Our living expenses was like $4,000, and then our mortgage was like $3,000, so that's $7,000. The broker just told us to sign the page, and we faxed it back to her, and she said she'll fill out the rest. Jason Hannigan regrets it now. He says they could never afford the loan. If the bank looked at it and they just looked at the income to what the living expenses were, it doesn't match either. I'm no financial advisor, but I see that figure is not true.
Months later, they had to offload their investment property in Sydney. And 3 years on, they were forced to sell their family home in Brisbane. Now they want to sue their broker.
Getting a client a home loan is a very unique service.
In a statement to 7:30, Pepper Money says it applied a multiplier to the Hannigans' expenses to make sure they could afford it.
From Pepper Money.
It's disappointing that we're still seeing cases like the Hannigans, where everyday Australians have been thrust into loans that they can't afford. Chuk, 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 chuk.
On a property about an hour out of Brisbane, Kevin Canavan enjoys a quiet life.
I thought it was expensive, and I thought the bank would go, no, you can't afford this house. I just put my faith and trust in the system that they'd do the right thing.
In 2014, he borrowed $720,000 from NAB to buy an investment property. He declared his household income as nearly $9,000 a month and $4,000 in expenses.
It wasn't until months down the track after we signed the loan did I see the loan application that they've actually wrote $3,500. And on this loan application there's just multiple mistakes. They've used liquid paper. Probably the only thing they did get right was their name and address.
That lower expense figure guaranteed that, on paper at least, Kevin Canavan could afford the loan. But in fact, he was $236 short each month.
It's been very difficult. Yeah, I've had to sell my car and I've relied on family members for a bit of support.
Banks aren't simply meant to estimate your expenses when handing out loans. They're meant to ask about your individual situation. NAB has told 7:30 in a statement the application was assessed in line with its lending policies and the Canavan's income and expenses were considered. Both Kevin Canavan and Jason Hannigan were caught out by what's known in banking as the Household Expenditure Measure, or the HEM. If you have a loan, chances are yours is based on it too. About 3/4 of loans are. It's a tool financial institutions use to calculate your monthly expenses. But it was never meant to reflect what you actually spent. It was designed to work out the bare minimum you can survive on. The lower your expenses are on paper, the more money the bank will lend you, even if you can't afford it. But it's also supposed to be a red flag. If your expenses are lower than the HEM, the bank should be asking why.
When it comes to lending, of course, you can pump out lots and lots of loans and you can make good short-term profits.
Macquarie University researcher Elizabeth Sheedy has surveyed more than 35,000 bank staff around the world.
The danger is that you overplay that and you end up making too many loans, some of which really are not responsible, that the customers are not going to be able to pay back comfortably.
The Royal Commission has put a blowtorch on the banks for irresponsible lending. Any move to tighten the rules could make it harder for would-be borrowers to get a loan.
On average, a person walking into the bank in the future for any given level of income is now going to be able to borrow less.
Dr Sally Auld is expecting either the banks to crack down or the regulator to force them.
I suspect for the housing market, what that means is you'll see a slowdown in the rate of house price growth.
While other analysts have warned of a credit crunch that could send house prices into a dive, Dr Auld is more cautious.
It doesn't necessarily imply that house prices will fall, but I think it's a fair assumption to say that house price growth will probably be slower than would otherwise have been the case.
730 has spoken to other borrowers who accuse the banks of irresponsible lending. A Sydney woman was lent $75,000 by St George while she was an inpatient in a mental health facility. When 730 contacted the bank, it agreed to wipe her debt. And a 61-year-old cancer patient was given a 30-year mortgage. He died a year later, and the bank now owns his home. Bruce Ford is a banking activist, but he doesn't heap all the blame on banks. He's up for a bigger fight with the bank's watchdog, the Financial Ombudsman Service.
Quite frankly, our opinion is I think they're a sham.
Bruce Ford says the watchdog hasn't been enforcing the guidelines, which leaves customers with little recourse.
These people are destroyed. This is their last chance to get to get justice.
In a statement to 730, the Ombudsman says its approach is consistent with the law and ASIC guidance. It hopes the Royal Commission's findings make the complaints process easier for everyone.
We believe that quality financial advice makes a real difference to people's lives.
The Commission has already claimed its first high-profile scalp. AMP's boss Craig Miller quit last week after revelations thousands of customers were charged for financial advice they never received. Jason Hannigan thinks that should be a warning to the lending industry.
No one is held accountable or liable for what they've done to everyday Australians. We worked hard to get to where we were, and more or less they've taken it overnight.